Hi there, Dave Rawlings here of the London Longsword Academy, and I have two new swords to show you. They're both by Chris at Balefire Blades, and we wanted to go for something which, although completely functional for class and for training, also had a little bit of a personal aesthetic. Now, I have a rather large Star of Chaos as part of a tattoo back piece, and we wanted to carry on that motif into the swords. So it's a little bit of a, oh, it's my sword, look at me, I'm very posh, but also is designed to be incredibly functional. So I wanted to go through these swords with you. I'll put the weights, the measures, the point of balance, that kind of thing in the description below. This is really going to be about my feelings about the interaction with Chris and the swords themselves, and see what you think about them. So first of all, we have the Sidesword here. Now, very, very similar design to the 1595 club. I think I love the design of that sword. I think it's quite tasteful. So it's incredibly sturdy fittings. Closed port here on this because I like my fingers. So anything coming down the blade has got a little bit of resistance. Still not as safe as a cut hilt, but has a good aesthetic. As you can see, the Stars of Chaos on either side. Now this motif continues onto the Quillons and onto the pommel, so he's done a really nice degree of thought going into that. Then here you can see coming from the blade into the ricasso that it thins and tapers in slightly, which is a nice touch. And even the fullering, excuse the fingerprint smudges all over here, the fullering is very deep and even on both sides. And then the blade takes a diamond section towards the end a little bit, which is very nice. And you have the thickened tip, obviously. Now with these thickened tips, they are still going to get leather on them because it just really does take that nastiness out of the impact on them. So they will be tipped with quite thick leather as well. So which destroys the aesthetic a little bit, but is much nicer on your training partners. Now the wire wrapping on this, Chris has done something with his wire wrapping where it is very, very precise now. It's very even, and there's really no movement in this, which is fantastic, incredibly happy. The crossguard here of Quillons, the movement from the Quillon itself down into the blade, that is very, very smooth. So there's no discomfort holding. Again, very, very rounded, which is good, and comfortable to hold in multiple different grips. So incredibly happy with that. So I only have one issue with this. First of all, I'm going to point out something which you can't see. It's really, really pernickety. There is a slight roughness on one side that there isn't on the other. And it's nothing, but just so I'm being really critical, I can tell. It's really, really ridiculous. No one's going to get injured by it, but I can feel there's a slight difference. Tiny, tiny little thing. The only thing I would really point out on this, however, is the weight. Now, two things to that. First of all, the weight is exactly what I asked for. There is no discrepancy on that, there's no problem. However, in receiving it, I now feel that that is slightly too heavy to train with my partner safely. So I will send this back at some point, and I will pay because it's my mistake. And I'll just get that slightly light, and Chris said he'll do that, but that's completely down to me. So be very, very aware that you communicate how much weight you want in the blade. I wanted something a little bit more weighty. It's still lighter than the 1595s, but it is going to pack a little bit of heft to it, so I will have that sent back and I will get the weight reduced on it. But again, Chris is very, very open to that, and as I say, my fault entirely. So that's the Sidesword. Now, it's always very, very difficult when you get a sword from someone and you like their work and you go, is this one good or is this one bad? And obviously the Sidesword I quite like. I also got a Dussack from Chris, and this puts me in a little bit of an awkward situation because you have this, how good is it feeling. So we have Pandaemonia, which is the Dussack that Chris made for me, and frankly, it's fucking beautiful. I have nothing that I can say wrong against this. Again, the wire work on this is impeccable. It is very tight, it's very regular, and there is no movement, and it is beautiful. I would love to see that in a museum somewhere. I think that's absolutely fantastic. The pommel, I believe, is hollow. All of this is black again, and we have the Star of Chaos motif. We have the Star of Chaos motif again on the, here, on the ports, which again are closed because I'm trying to reduce the risk of something going through here. There is no fingering, and there's no fingering because I use this in left and right hands. Again, the motif continuing to the Quillons. Up and down turn Quillons, as you see in a lot of Dussacks, aesthetically This is a masterpiece. This is the best thing that I have seen come out of Balefire, in my opinion. The weight on it, the balance is phenomenal. It is incredibly manoeuvrable while still maintaining some blade presence. The difference between this heft-wise and the side sword is incredible. This absolutely spot on. If he was to make any form of production Dussack, that would be the balance. Now, even though there's a lot of metal in this basket here, it still has a good degree of movement and it's tight. It's not really big enough for something like a red dragon glove. It really is for a fencing glove. So this has allowed us to keep the cage quite small. Now again, going back to the aesthetic, look at this. Beautifully done Star of Chaos there. And then rather than just repeat that on the other side, a slightly different aesthetic for the other side. So this alone, the side sword is good. This is phenomenal. This really shows the stuff that Chris can turn out, and I'm blown away by it. I think basically my Dussack class is going to be the most popular class in the world, purely because people are going to be coming to see this. It's a wonderful thing, Chris. I'm incredibly pleased with what you've done with it. It moves incredibly well. It feels that I can train with this safely with my partner. There's a good thickness to this. I'm not going to smash this about. It's too aesthetically beautiful. But I'm comfortable training with this. So I'll put the weights and measures down below. I'll give you some close-ups of these. This side sword I think is going to be great once I've reduced the weight in it a little bit. This Dussack is a masterwork. I'm so impressed with this, Chris. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the review. Take care.